Hello and welcome back. I'm Caroline Lindsay, veterinary physiotherapist, graduate sports therapist, certified saddle fitter, and also a certified educator of veterinary physiotherapy. And I hold a general certificate for higher education teaching. I'm also a final year doctoral student investigating rider posture, pain, and performance. Thank you for following, commenting, and subscribing, and to contacting me privately to express your support. Following my last video on what's potentially next for Charlotte Dujardin in terms of potential sanctions, if any, today I want to take a deeper dive into the facts of the case and some dialogue from Carl Hester. So I will be commenting on a couple of news articles from Horse and Hound, The Sun newspaper, and Metro newspaper in the UK. But before I start, I want to make distinction between the FEI and the RSPCA. The RSPCA investigate and prepare cases for the courts of law in the UK, and they are a charity, so they are dependent on the public confidence to fund them to do so. And the FEI is a membership body representing those riders who subscribe to them and their code of conduct rules. So that's the separate roles of both of them. As I said before, usually we would have expected the RSPCA to step in, but as far as I know, and I'd like to get confirmation of this, as far as I know, they are waiting until the FEI have completed their investigations. And I can see why they would do that, because it means that someone else's resources is being dedicated to it. So firstly, let's read about what the lawyer has confirmed on the 24th of July, which is from Horse and Hound, Oscar Williams. Because as the wheel of social media keeps grinding and turning, it's easy to get confused about the facts so as to remember some and not others. So this is directly from the lawyer, Stefan Wensing, the Dutch lawyer representing the claimant who filed the official complaint with the FEI to clarify some of the conflicting reports. One of these was when the incident took place, while Charlotte's statement, which can be read in full below, and I won't be reading that again, said the training session was 4 years ago, and Mr. Wensing disputes this. My client insists the video was filmed 2.5 years ago, not 4, as in Charlotte Dujardin's statement. He said that would have been impossible because the whole world was locked down due to the pandemic. And yes, if you remember, certainly in the UK, we were in and out of lockdown several times, and some were permitted to return to work, key workers, moving around the country, as in Charlotte Dujardin's case. She was, as I understand it, teaching 2 hours away from her base. So in lockdown and just out of lockdown, we were made very aware of the risks of traveling around the country. He added that the girl riding the horse in the video is not in any way involved in raising the official complaint. So there you have it. The rider has been ruled out. My client is the one filming, and the girl on the horse in the lesson has nothing to do with it, said Mr. Wensing. My client was a former student of Charlotte Dujardin and had been to her barn a couple of times and had noticed what she now considers abuse. So there's a fairly important clue there, but the person filming had known Charlotte as she was a former student and visiting her barn a couple of times. So it doesn't sound like she was a working student there, because she only visited a couple of times. So potentially engaging Charlotte Dujardin for freelance lessons. But at the time, she was thinking, Charlotte is a superstar. She's the best rider in the world, so she knows what she's doing. This must be normal. So keep that information in mind, because I'm going to next go on to what Alicia Dickinson comments about being named as the whistleblower. During the training session shown on the video, Charlotte Dujardin explained to the student and my client, okay, so the student being the young rider who was riding, that the horse wasn't cantering enough and must lift up its legs more. It was nothing to do with Piaffe or Passage. It was a small, tall horse, not a Grand Prix horse. So a talented, skilled horse, but not at the higher levels. And Charlotte wanted to improve the canter. Many equestrian fans and others have questioned the timing of the release of the video so close to the Paris Olympics, where Charlotte may have become Britain's most medal-winning female athlete. At the time the video was recorded, my client was thinking this must be normal, he said. So the person filming the video whistleblowing doesn't sound like they have an extensive knowledge about dressage training. Then there was some doubt, and she began thinking this isn't okay. She spoke with a few people in the dressage industry who warned her not to do anything because they'll come after you. So I would imagine that his client would feel very threatened by that. And this is why a lot of people find themselves in situations of abuse and they don't speak out, because they too have something to lose. She was also afraid of victim blaming, so she didn't do anything with it. But then the two other riders were suspended, so she became a little braver. Then a few weeks ago, she hired me as a lawyer to submit a formal complaint to the FEI, but she was still doubting whether or not it was the right decision for a few reasons. So the lawyer didn't sit on this for an extended period of time. This happened, or this was reported in the lead up to the Olympics, and it was up to the lawyer to decide when this information about the complaint was released, not the whistleblower. First of all, it's not that she's celebrating this and drinking champagne. She's aware there's a human aspect to this story. I've got another story covering allegedly how Charlotte Dujardin is feeling about this presently. It's not easy to make a step like this. Mr. Wensing described comments suggesting that the timing of the complaint was designed to sabotage Britain's medal hopes as ridiculous. If she wanted to release this at the worst possible time, she would have done it during or after the Olympics. That would have been the worst scenario for the British team. At least now they have an alternate that can come in and it doesn't harm them that much. Yeah, but I think Charlotte Dujardin could still have picked up and kept her medal, because she wouldn't have been under investigation at that time, as I see it. And here is Charlotte Dujardin's statement, which I won't read again. So the next story that I want to go over is from The Sun. It states, whistleblower twists woman at centre of Charlotte Dujardin vid leak unmasked as dressage trainer Alicia Dickinson. And this was published on the 26th of July. And what I find most interesting about this case is how the national press has picked up on it and run with it. And last time I presented a BBC News, sports news report on this. So the world is watching. It's not just me, as some of you think. A dressage trainer was last night named as one of 3 key witnesses to Charlotte Dujardin's horsewhipping horror. Alicia Dickinson was identified by equestrian sources and online as being in the barn when the incident, which has destroyed Dujardin's hope of becoming Britain's most decorated Olympian, took place. And there's Alicia. There's the whipping video. Yeah, Alicia in a bikini, which the Sun is known for its enthusiastic interest in partially clad females. Ms. Dickinson, an Australian who lives in London with her husband and daughter, runs online and classroom-based learning courses with VIP packages costing up to £50,000 a head. It is understood she took high net worth clients to Dujardin for training. She last night denied being the whistleblower or recording the video. As I just suggested, the person who videoed the incident and then subsequently engaged a lawyer doesn't seem to match that of Alicia Dickinson. Speaking at her home in Battersea, she said, "I'm not the whistleblower. I did not film the footage." So why would she lie? And also, I consider that because her business is dressage, she could risk jeopardizing that by being the individual that called Charlotte Dujardin out on her behavior at a pivotal moment in Charlotte Dujardin's career. So I think because she basically runs in the same circles, I don't think that would have been the time for Alicia Dickinson to do this, even without confirming that she's not the whistleblower. So I don't see her deliberately trying to mislead, because she has a fair amount at stake herself. Our business relationship ended after the lesson shown in the video. Well, maybe Charlotte Dujardin ended it rather than Alicia Dickinson. And as Alicia Dickinson has said herself, there may be some videos out there emerging of her treating horses harshly. So I believe her when she says she wasn't the whistleblower. She added, "Charlotte has many enemies. It could have been anyone, but I got the backlash." The footage, allegedly filmed at a training yard around 4 years ago, shows Dujardin following a horse around, lashing at its legs 24 times in a minute. A voice in the background can be heard laughing as Dujardin strikes the animal with a lunging whip. Yeah, and if Alicia Dickinson is indeed the one who's laughing in the background, and she's running an educational program, that's not a good look for her. So that's another reason why I believe her. The video was given to Dutch equestrian lawyer Stefan Wensing, who released the bombshell evidence on Monday, forcing Dujardin to quit the Olympics in disgrace. Ms. Dickinson's identity was first revealed by a leading stud and dressage training yard in the Netherlands. Another source who worked with Miss Dickinson for a year said they were 100% sure it was her after recognising her unmistakable voice. She's also been named widely online and on social media. And last night, her lawyer confirmed to The Sun that she was there. So she was there. She could have been the one who was laughing, but she says she did not record the video. And she says she's not the whistleblower. But Ms. Dickinson claims she did not film the clip. It is understood the video was taken by the unknown mother of the rider seen on the horse. So there you are. You have confirmation that a young rider was being filmed by her mother. Charlotte Dujardin was teaching her. Charlotte Dujardin has admitted to being the individual in the video seen whipping the horse, and Alicia Dickinson was a bystander. But it is unknown who gave the footage to Mr. Wensing before he passed it on to the sports governing body, the FEI, on Monday. Well, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person filming the video, the mother of the rider, and the whistleblower are one and the same. Mr. Wensing told The Sun yesterday that his client felt sorry for Dujardin, but said the abuse was wrong and wanted to stop it. So yeah, this is another statement which to me suggests some distance from the world of dressage. And as stated previously, she was a student who had witnessed comparable activity on occasion while being with Charlotte Dujardin. He said, "I need to protect the name of my client. My client is so afraid of the witch hunt." So yes, so that fear, and also asking around, potentially getting some guidance, advice, hearing that she faced threat by the industry, she felt she had to enlist a lawyer to act on her behalf. All this talk about the timing is victim blaming. It's ridiculous. The timing is not relevant. It's just victim blaming. Victims do not choose the timing in a criminal case. It's no different with this case. My client actually feels very sorry for Charlotte Dujardin, but she did not pick the timing. If she wanted to inflict the worst damage on Charlotte Dujardin, she'd have done it during or after the Olympics. And you can read here, who is Alicia Dickinson? She's a Grand Prix dressage rider. She has a vast social media following for a dressage education system. She claims to have reached over 20 million equine enthusiasts worldwide with her coaching on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So she's quite the influencer there. She has VIP packages costing up to £50,000 a head. She lives in London with her husband and daughter. On her company website, she writes, "My story is really the same as most people's. The only difference is I actually succeeded in fulfilling my childhood dreams to become a competitive Grand Prix dressage rider. What got me here is my love for the sport, my love of caring for the animals that make this sport possible, and my ability to believe that I was good enough, but I just didn't understand it, not that I wasn't good enough." And she was not trying to damage the British team's chances. They have a good team, even without Charlotte Dujardin, yes. "My client saw Dujardin abusing a horse several other times," Charlotte told her. "This is how we do it. This is how we train the horses." At first, my client thought, "Oh, she's an Olympian. Who am I to question her?" But she knew it was wrong and wanted to stop it. Dressage people warned her, "They'll come for you." Which is why I think Alicia Dickinson is not the whistleblower because there would have been scrutiny rather than publicising of her teaching activities. They said that Charlotte Dujardin was a dressage superstar and that my client's life would end. So those in the industry had to point out to the lawyer's client that Charlotte Dujardin was a dressage superstar. So it seems that she wasn't aware of the full consequences of outing this behaviour from Charlotte Dujardin, whereas Alicia Dickinson was aware. She had business dealings with Charlotte Dujardin. So all the social media hype, and I'm not protecting Alicia Dickinson here at all, I'm merely looking at the facts, but all the hype in social media about her being the whistleblower and laughing on the video, because although she says she was there, she did not say that she was not laughing or the one who was laughing. If you do have another look at the video, you'll see that there's an image in the mirror of a person apparently filming and an individual that could be Alicia Dickinson, and they're standing fairly close to each other. So you can get a sense who's laughing there. Make your own mind up. My client only felt able to speak out when she saw that 2 other Olympic riders had been suspended this year. Yes, the list is growing. On the FEI webpage listing disciplinary cases. They were also suspended for abusing horses, so my client felt she could finally fight for animal rights. She came forward last weekend and I submitted her complaint to the FEI on Monday, so about a week before Team GB dressage riders were preparing to leave for the Paris Olympics. Dujardin, who was in the running to be a flag bearer in today's Olympic opening ceremony in Paris, has been provisionally suspended for 6 months by the FEI while an investigation is carried out. And I've just made a video on more detail of that. The 39-year-old has been laying low at her £750,000, almost $1 million, American dollars, detached home near Newent in Gloucestershire. The house, which she shares with her partner and 1-year-old daughter, is just a few miles from the multi-medal winning Olympian Carl Hester's training yard where Dujardin works. Charlotte's statement, I won't read that again. Dujardin has been stripped of her funding and her chances of getting a damehood have gone up in smoke following the scandal. She's also been axed as an ambassador by horse welfare charity Brooke. Why would you be an advocate for equine welfare and behaving that way? She would have become Britain's most successful female Olympian if she had won a medal at the Paris Games next week. The Enfield-born competitor, which is on the outskirts of London, North London, would also have been all but certain to be handed a damehood in the King's New Year's honours list. But Whitehall sources say any such honour for Dujardin is now off the table. And Dujardin's 2017 CBE for services to equestrianism could be reviewed by the Honours Committee. Interesting. So no, and especially with those types of awards, it's not just Olympic medals. Being recognised as an outstanding citizen of the country you were born in, officially recognised, royally recognised, you need to take extreme care of the activities you engage in, because in my view, what she's seen doing in the video is not worthy of recognition as an outstanding citizen of the British Empire. Yesterday, UK Sport said her funding has been suspended pending the conclusion of the FEI probe. Well, I've had a look at Companies House website at Charlotte Dujardin Limited, and she's not short of a few pounds. So having the funding withdrawn doesn't necessarily mean that she cannot afford to remain in the industry. A spokesman said, "We expect all staff and athletes in Olympic and Paralympic sport to adhere to the highest standards of behaviour, ethics and integrity." And yeah, they have a code of conduct for that. This is Alicia Dickinson. This is Charlotte kissing one of her medals. Alicia Dickinson. And I read out this full statement in an earlier video, so I won't read it again. And there concludes that report, which makes it very clear who the whistleblower potentially is not. And when you hear it from a lawyer, they usually are very clear about what is and what isn't a fact. Next, before I go on to the Metro report about how Charlotte is feeling these days, some comment from Carl Hester. "We've got to put the horses first," Carl Hester on the sports challenges and the Charlotte Dujardin video, and that was publicised on the 30th of July, written by Becky Murray. "We have to show the positives of the sport," was the message from Carl Hester at the Paris Olympics as he addressed the Charlotte Dujardin video and the challenges facing equestrian sport. So this was said while he was at the Olympics. Following Carl's Grand Prix test this morning, with the wonderful fame which slotted them into third of the Group A riders on 77.35%, he tackled the topic of his former teammate. So some background here. A British equestrian mirrored the suspension. Carl said the video was a huge shock to me and confirmed he was not previously aware of it. The video was not filmed at his property. Charlotte made her statement and she's apologised and given her thoughts on it, which I respect. It's now an ongoing investigation with the FEI, said Carl. "I've known Charlotte for 17 years. She's a mum and she's paid very heavily for this in a way that you just wouldn't believe. I know she will have to accept what the FEI gives her, and she will." Oh, that seems to suggest she won't be appealing any decision. "But I just hope that she's strong enough to be able to come back from that. Nobody's going to support what was seen in the video. You can't, but my personal opinion of Charlotte over 17 years, I have not seen that." Well, according to her autobiography, what he has seen is how she uses her hands while she's riding, which Charlotte herself described as a burning feeling so much that Carl Hester nicknamed her Eddie from the character Edward Scissorhands, as she describes it, and I'm unsure about how Carl addressed the heaviness in her hands. I can't help feeling that that horse was very uncomfortable. Carl added that he has not seen Charlotte as he has been in Paris, but he said he knew that things were very, very difficult for her. She's surrounded by people who are trying to help her. She obviously accepts what she did, and I'm glad she's done that. And everyone can see she's done that, he said. This was 4 years ago. People do make mistakes right now. So how would he know it was 4 years ago? while we were in and out of lockdown. Right now, it's going to be a long road for her and a lesson for everybody in the horse world. We've got to put the horses first and show that. So why does he think she should come back from that? It sounds to me like perhaps he doesn't consider that brutalizing a horse in that way, under normal circumstances and out of the limelight, you would expect a ban on keeping horses for a considerable time, keeping any animal for that matter. Moving forwards, Carl said that we have to show the positives of the sport. We can show how much we love our horses and how we train them, he said. As we see from the sport here in Paris, the last few days we've seen amazing sport. And I would argue some not so amazing equestrian sport. And I've made a couple of videos comparing Carl Hester's performance with the highest and lowest ranking performances. And we've seen the care that everyone's getting. The grooms here are incredibly hardworking, yes, how they love and look after the horses. And I hope that really starts to show. Well, it's odd that this is put on the grooms to show how they love and look after the horses. And that's the conclusion of that article. I just want to show you something that I thought I'd take a quick look at last night on Facebook. I was just looking at potentially how much support Charlotte Dujardin has. And given that this is a support group here, albeit an unofficial one, I still thought it would be interesting to have a look. It has 33 members, all accrued in approximately 4 months or so. Dear C, what can this group do and how can we support you to getting back into the arena? And a video of her riding the horse that she would have ridden at the Olympics, basically showing this is what you could have won or how it could have been. Another comment, I'm supporting Charlotte. It was 4 years ago. Some people are mean or jealous. She's a great rider and equestrian in dressage, the best. She loved her special horse. We'll miss you not completing at the Olympics. And one of the admins of the group says thanks, answering on Charlotte Dujardin's behalf, presumably. And someone's come in with seriously. And we have another performance posted there. So presumably to remind people of the image that she used to portray, in my view. So this group was started around the time that the story broke and the original video was publicized. That's not in this group, incidentally, or that's not linked to in this group. Oh dear, someone says turd, which in the UK, for the benefit of the international viewers, means feces. And again, more, this is what you could have won, and or pos vile animal abuser. So she's getting some comments here from people with a different opinion, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of support in this group. If I was the admins, I would take this group down, because it being there just shows me that there are very few people who vocalize support for Charlotte Dujardin and her potential return. The admin don't delete the comments either. Again, abuser. So nothing much there. So it would appear that the people on social media condemning her actions, Charlotte Dujardin's video, abuse video, outnumber her supporters, because there's a lot more dialogue from people who don't support what she did. And finally, we'll take a look at what Metro reports. This publication is one that I've seen widely distributed on the London Underground. So basically a quick read for commuters. Published September 28th, written by Ben Fleming. British Olympic legend mentally crucified by a scandal that stopped her competing in Paris. Well, I would argue that the horse abused in that video was also mentally crucified. And if you refer back to my video of my review and opinions while I was running that video on YouTube, you'll see a lot of signs of psychological stress being demonstrated by the horse. So is it karma if you inflict psychological stress and put that out there? You might just get it back. She's been mentally crucified by the horsewhipping scandal that saw her banned from competing at the Olympics. She's Britain's joint most decorated female Olympian, due to compete at her 4th Games in both the individual dressage and team event. However, she was forced to pull out on the eve of the Olympics because of the video. In a statement, she claimed she made an error of judgment some 24 times, as I recall her using the whip on and at that horse during a coaching session 4 years ago, and is deeply ashamed of her actions, but is still awaiting her tribunal to discover the length of any potential ban. Months after the scandal broke, the Brit is still said to be reeling from the after effects, which include continued death threats, that's new to me, and abuse for her actions. Well, we haven't seen her out in public. I don't know of any sightings of her, except the Sun newspaper reported her meeting one of her horse sponsors. I made a video on that story, but she would appear to be laying low at the moment because there's nothing out there in the news to say otherwise. So where is she getting these death threats from? And where's she getting the abuse from? Mentally, they are crucifying her, an anonymous rider who rides at the same yard as Dujardin. Well, is that her own yard she's riding at? And is she employing staff there? She's got anti-hunt saboteurs outside the house. That's interesting. Death threats. Farriers have had threats for going in and shoeing the horses. Horrific. Well, I'm surprised there's no stories out there or images out there of these saboteurs. Let me know in the comments below if there are images circulating about that. As well as the impending legal battle, Dujardin has also taken a huge financial hit, with her UK sport funding withdrawn and 7 sponsors severing their ties. Well, this is about business, and this scandal, as I see it, is not good for business. So sponsors and those funding her will be running for the hills. The British rider could face a lengthy suspension, especially after Carina Kruth, a Danish rider who also withdrew from Paris, was recently slapped with an 8-month suspension for a similar offence. 8 months. I wouldn't say it was similar, because what we have to consider with Charlotte Dujardin's case is massively bringing the sport into disrepute, certainly in the UK, and that there was a rider in a vulnerable situation that Charlotte was not at the time safeguarding, because the horse was delivered 24 lashes with a lunge whip, and the rider, as a consequence, was placed in grave danger. Had that horse reacted as many horses would and bolted, galloped off with that rider, she could have fallen off and become seriously injured, along with the other bystanders who appear to have been in the arena. As I say, if you look back at the video, you'll see that the other 2 individuals present were in the arena, from what I can make out. While the whistleblower who came forward with the video has not been named yet, the Dutch equine lawyer who filed the complaint said his client took no pleasure in coming forward with the video. Well, who would? It's not fun to ruin a career, Stefan Wensing said. My client is not celebrating. She doesn't feel like a hero, but she told me this had to be done as she wants to save dressage. Alicia Dickinson, meanwhile, a dressage trainer identified as one of 3 people who saw the incident take place, said Dujardin had made enemies in the sport and hinted the complaint could be personally motivated. I would like to make clear I'm not the whistleblower. I did not film the footage. Any online speculation is unfounded, the Australian said at the time on Instagram. Our business relationship ended after the lesson shown in the video. Charlotte has many enemies. It could have been anyone who leaked the video, but I got the backlash. And that concludes that report. So do feel free to comment, and thank you for doing so. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and keeping this case in the public spotlight so that ultimately we can all do our bit to ensure that sport horses, dressage horses that are supposed to represent the absolute best in horse training, that is reflected in their movement. Let's get them some help and remove, or by removing the rewards that can make their way into the hands of abusers. Back soon.